ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Mayor and the Police Commissioner, I'd like to welcome you to One Police Plaza for our annual Police Department Memorial Day ceremony. To begin the ceremony, please rise for the presentation of our colors and the singing of our national anthem by Police Officer Karen Darden.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight all the ramparts we've watched were so gallantly streaming. In the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Officer Darden. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for our invocation by Police Department Chief Chaplain, Rabbi Dr. Alvin Cass.
Almighty and eternal God, thou who controllest the destiny of all peoples and in whose hand lies the fate of all nations, great is thy beneficence in giving to our city the gift of the courageous police officers whose memory we honor here today. We will always remember with appreciation and affection those brave officers who made the supreme sacrifice to make our city a better place in which to live. May their souls be bound up in the bond of everlasting life, and may they find eternal rest beneath the wings of thy glory. Dear God, we implore thee to look benignly upon our police officers. Do thou walk beside them in the performance of their perilous duties. Be thou a shield about them as they wrestle with the messengers of social chaos and lawlessness. And finally, we beseech thee to grant to Mayor de Blasio, Police Commissioner Bratton, and all the men and women of the New York City Police Department continuing success in their unceasing endeavors to make New York truly a society founded on justice and equity, where peace and security, happiness and prosperity, right and freedom may forever abide among us. Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Cass. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. It is indeed my pleasure to introduce members of the dais assembled with us this morning. I would ask that you please hold your applause until all have been introduced. Seated in the first row and on my right, the Chief of Department, Philip Banks III, the Police Commissioner of the City of New York, the Honorable William J. Bratton, the Mayor of the City of New York, the Honorable Bill de Blasio, Deputy Commissioner for Administration, Kathy Perez, Deputy Commissioner for Management and Budget, Vincent DiGrippo, Deputy Commissioner for Strategic Initiatives, Zach Tuman, Deputy Commissioner for Management, Analysis, and Planning, Bill Andrews, Deputy Commissioner for Information Technology, Jessica Tisch. Seated in our second row, the Chief of Transportation Bureau, Thomas Chan, Chief of Transit, Joseph Fox, Chief of Community Affairs Bureau, Joanne Chaffee, Police Department Chief Chaplain, Rabbi Dr. Alvin Cass, Police Department Deputy Chief Chaplain, Monsignor Robert J. Romano, Deputy Commissioner, Collaborative Policing, Susan A. Herman, Executive Director for Support Services Bureau, Robert S. Martinez, Special Counsel to the Police Commissioner, Edna Wells Handy. Seated in the third row, the Commanding Officer, Patrol Borough Manhattan South, Assistant Chief William Morris. The Commanding Officer, Patrol Borough Manhattan North, Assistant Chief James Secreto. The Commanding Officer, Patrol Borough Queens North, Assistant Chief Dan Pizzuti. Supervising Chief Surgeon, Dr. Eli Kleinman. Chief of Detectives, Robert Boyce. Chief of Internal Affairs Bureau, Joseph Resnick. Chief of Housing, Carlos Gomez. Chief of Organized Crime Control Bureau, Thomas P. Pertel. Chief of Intelligence, Thomas P. Galati. Chief of Counterterrorism, James Waters. Seated in our fourth row, the Commanding Officer, Patrol Borough Bronx, Assistant Chief Larry Noonan. Commanding Officer, Patrol Borough Staten Island, Assistant Chief Edward Delatorre. The President of Lieutenants Benevolent Association, Lou Turco. The President of the Sergeants Benevolent Association, Ed Mullins. The President of Patrolmen's Benevolent Association, Patrick Lynch. And the President of the Detectives Endowment Association, Michael Palladino. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our day, so we thank you for being here. At this time, various representatives from various union, religious, and fraternal organizations will present floral arrangements in memory of our deceased members. Representing the Patrolmen's Benevolent Association is Police Officer Madeline Sukanofi. Representing the Detectives Endowment Association, Detective Sam Miller. Representing the Sergeants Benevolent Association, Sergeant Mike Perugia. Representing the Lieutenants Benevolent Association, Lieutenant John DeMarco. Representing the Captains Endowment Association, Deputy Inspector Roy Richter. Representing the Survivors of the Shield, Ms. Maria DiDragowski, Lorraine Shanley, and Ms. Susan McCormick. Representing the Deceased Officers Parent Association, Ms. Marge Dwyer and Judy Hanson. Representing the Committee of Police Societies, Detective Eugene Canapi. Representing the Traffic Squad Benevolent Association, Director John Velez. Representing the Honor Legion, Detective Oscar Hernandez and Sergeant Mahan Chandu. Representing the Holy Name Society of Manhattan, the Bronx, and Staten Island, Detective William Devine. Representing the Holy Name Society of Brooklyn and Queens, Police Officer Melissa Curtis. Representing the American Legion Post 460, Police Officer Yahaira Ruiz. Representing the Policewomen's Endowment Association, Sergeant Nora Hamed. Representing the Anchor Club, Police Officer Michael McGinnis. Representing the Police Square Club, Police Officer Byron Pitts. Representing the Sharim Society, Sergeant Michael Padarm. Representing the Columbian Association, Sergeant Richard Angeletti. Representing the St. George Society, Sergeant Ian Hansen. Representing the Guardians Association, Detective Yusuf Ham. Representing the Regina Celli Society, Detective Madeline Batigue. Representing the Emerald Society, Detective Peter Whalen. Representing the Pulaski Association, Police Officer Keith McTell. Representing the Hispanic Society, Detective Natasha De Leon. Representing the Viking Association, Police Officer Eric Trahome. Representing the Steuben Association, Sergeant Melissa Nautig. Representing the International Police Association, Sergeant Juan Perez. Representing the St. Paul Society, Detective Nicholas Biancoviso. Representing the Asian Jade Society, Police Officer Billy Choi. Representing the Gay Officers Action League, Detective Carl Locke. Representing the Police Officer for Christ, Sergeant Hector Mercado. Representing the Police Self-Support Group, Detective Donald Rios and retired Detective Anthony Senf. Representing the Dominican Officers Organization, Lieutenant Edward Rodriguez. Representing the Latino Officers Association, Detective Denixon Cabrero. Representing the Korean American Association, Sergeant Chung Bang. Representing the Desi Society, Detective Amjad Khan. Representing the Muslim Officers Society, Lieutenant Jamil Atiri. Representing the Advancement of Civilian Employees Association, Administrative Staff Analyst Michael Sacaliri. Thank you for all our union representatives, fraternal organizations for their floral presentation. It's now my pleasure to introduce the Mayor of the City of New York, the Honorable Bill de Blasio.
A special thank you to Lieutenant Giorgio, who does such a fine job with each of the important events and ceremonies of this department. I want to thank everyone who's here, all the family members, all the loved ones, everyone who is here in this moment to remember and appreciate those who have served us. I want to thank everyone who's here on this dais. I never tire of talking about the quality, the importance of this police force. I'm going to give you a quote in a moment that gives you some of the history, but I also never tire of saying that we have the finest police leader for the finest police force, and that's our Commissioner, Bill Bratton, and we thank him for his leadership. To all the deputy commissioners, the chiefs, commanding officers here on the dais, to Police Officer Darden, Rabbi Cass, all of the leaders of the fraternal organizations and the labor organizations, we thank you for being here in unity today, to remember, to appreciate, to embrace the family members, to live up to that notion Commissioner Bratton and I have talked about so many times, including as we faced some of the tragedies of recent weeks, that the NYPD stands by its members, stands by the families, and that is a permanent commitment that we make and something that we believe in, and this day is another part of that. And for me personally, it's meaningful to join with you on such a solemn occasion to express my appreciation and my respect on behalf of the 8.4 million people of this city, for everyone who serves this city and for those who we've lost in the service of this city. History I wanted to note. In 1865, the New York Times called the NYPD, quote, the finest, best organized, best disciplined, and most efficient police force in the world. So that was the first time that phrase was used in the media, and the phrase, the finest, stuck ever since, and for good reason. 150 years since that idea was first put out in words, it's a well-known fact that this is the finest police force, and it's proven every single day. And you guard today more people than ever before in our history. We have surpassed 8.4 million in our population, the highest we have ever been in the history of New York City, and we're growing, which means the members of this force literally have more people to protect, and they're doing it better than ever. And that's what makes it possible for this city to work, for people to live here and work here, for everything that we love about this city to be what it is, because we have a police force that guards us every day. And it's not simple, and today is a reminder. It's not simple, and it comes with that constant danger lurking. And yet, day after day, men and women put on the uniform, and in so many moments, so many occasions, they run toward the danger. They don't stand idly by, they run toward the danger. And so many others in our society wouldn't have that instinct, but the men and women of the NYPD have it universally every single day. Under Commissioner Bratton's leadership, we're keeping crime low, and we're deepening the bond between police and community for the benefit of all, for the safety of our communities, for the safety of our officers. And I can tell you from traveling across the 5 boroughs and talking to people of every walk of life, the appreciation for the NYPD is intense, and the sense of growing partnership is palpable, and it's appreciated by the communities you serve. And everyone who puts on a uniform knows the risk you take, and you do it nobly, you do it willingly, and so many did so, particularly on September 11th, 2001. And we lost so many good officers of this department, and we continue, tragically, to lose officers who served that day because of illnesses related to the aftermath and that tragedy. So many worked in that moment to save lives, and so many worked for days and weeks and months after in the recovery effort, trying to show respect for those who had fallen in the process. They themselves became ill. And that was another act of sacrifice. In fact, 12 of the 13 people added to this year's honor roll died due to 9/11 related illnesses. And one other, a traffic enforcement agent, Kalanyarat Ranasinghe, died in a terrible accident trying to protect people of this city. Died in the line of duty. I, as mayor-elect, had the honor of attending his funeral and heard from so many what a powerful presence he was to his family, his friends, his community, and what a great example he was. And then last month, we were reminded once again of the dangers faced by the people who serve us. We lost Officer Dennis Guerra in the Coney Island fire. And I, with Commissioner Bratton, had gotten to know his family, saw the commitment of his fellow officers. On April 14th, we gathered near his Rockaway home to bid him farewell. He was a fine police officer. He was beloved by his colleagues, by his family especially. He died in the line of duty. His partner is still fighting to recover. Rosa Rodriguez, Officer Rosa Rodriguez, fighting a valiant fight. Thank God, making progress every day. We keep her in our prayers. We keep her family in our prayers. And there's times that officers who have faced danger so nobly are wounded, and we remember them as well. Thank God, Officer James Lee is making a strong recovery. Commissioner Bratton and I visited him in February in the hospital. Powerful example of what this police force is all about. A rookie, his first year on the force, with his partner, Randy Chow, removed 2 fare beaters from a city bus and found themselves staring down the barrel of a gun, but they didn't flinch. They did everything exactly as you could ask of police officers. And even though Officer Lee was shot, he was immediately attended to, not only by his colleagues, but by community members. Officer Chow and others pursued the perpetrator, aided by community members, and they were able to apprehend the perpetrator and remove his gun before any more damage could be done. So there's so many examples of bravery, of professionalism that we celebrate, and so many people who do the right thing every day, and we have to pay tribute to them, and we especially have to pay tribute to those we have lost. This year's honor roll includes the following heroes: Lieutenant Stephen Chaffee, Sergeant Michael McHugh, Detective Thomas Weiner, Detective John Christofferson, Detective Tracy Czechowski, Detective Tommy Merriweather, Detective Carmen Figueroa, Police Officer Frank Macri, Police Officer Karen Barnes, Police Officer Richard Holland, Police Officer Ronald Becker, Jr., Police Officer Francis Petone, and again, Traffic Enforcement Agent Kalnya Ranasinghe. You heard in those names not only names of individual heroes, but people who represent so many of the communities that make up this extraordinary city. And that miracle that is New York is exemplified by these individuals. They served all New Yorkers, regardless of background. They are part of what brought this city together, just like the officers of the NYPD do every day, making our diversity a strength. Commissioner Bratton has gotten me in the habit of quoting a hero of his, Sir Robert Peel. The more I look into his writings, Commissioner, the more I learn. He's often called the father of modern policing, and there's a beautiful quote he makes, he offered about the connection between the police and the people. He said, quote, "The police are the public, and the public are the police. The police being only members of the public who are paid to give full-time attention to duties which are incumbent on every citizen." I think it's a powerful thought of how members of this force reach a higher level as citizens in protecting their fellow citizens and yet always remain a part of the whole community. So you represent what is best about New York City. You represent what is best about all the neighborhoods and communities you come from. But unlike most citizens, you risk your lives every day for your fellow New Yorkers. So I want to thank all present today for your service. I want to remember all those who provided service and we lost. I want to thank everyone who serves this city for their courage and for making this a safer and better city every day. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's now my pleasure to introduce the Police Commissioner of the City of New York, the Honorable William J. Bratton.
Good morning. Mr. Mayor, thank you for your attendance here today. Thank you certainly for your words, and thank you for your unwavering support of this great organization. A personal thank you for once again giving me the opportunity that 20 years ago I never would have believed would happen again, to be once again the leader of this great organization, and to once again stand in this hall to honor the sacrifice, the service, the memory, to commemorate the memory, and to celebrate the lives of so many hundreds and thousands who have, in fact, given their lives for this city, for the residents of this city. There is no more significant day or ceremony in policing than this day. We are a profession that has ceremony as part of what we do. But this is the most significant. As the mayor referenced Sir Robert Peel when he talks about the police, that we are of the public, we are the public, there is a significant difference. Unlike the public, we have the obligation, and we take the oath of office, either as a civilian or a uniformed member, that the obligation to protect and to serve comes with the supreme obligation that no others in our society, no others other than in the public safety universe, are asked to do, to give their lives, if necessary. And today we celebrate those that have, in fact, fulfilled that obligation, that have fulfilled that oath of office that they took. To the families who are gathered here today, those whose loved ones are already on the wall, and those whose loved ones we will unveil in a few moments, thank you. Thank you for sharing your loved one with us. Thank you for being with us once again to fulfill an oath that we take when we bring your loved ones into this department, when we swear them in, that very celebratory day that so many of you attended, when they put that uniform on for the first time and so proudly put that shield on their chest and threw their gloves into the air and began a career. None of them, and none of you certainly, would have expected to have that career end the way it ultimately did. But despite the dangers and the risks, they went forward. They went forward toward that danger. And today we celebrate you for constantly and always being there to celebrate them and all that they sacrificed. We make a commitment when they are sworn in that we will never forget, that effectively they have gained a second family. And I think all of you in this audience understand what I mean about that second family. The men and women, their partners, their friends, their colleagues, who were there for them in life and remain there for them in death. The members of this department, our Employee Assistance Unit, Inspector Byrne, Deputy Commissioner Perez, and the men and women that work with them at the hospitals, the funeral homes, attending to all the necessities of life that must go on, even in death. We make that commitment, and we will continue to fulfill that commitment. We will always, always, always be there for you, and to be there for our heroes. The great Arthur Ashe, renowned for his tennis playing, but maybe he should be renowned more for his championing of human rights, had a quote. It was his definition of heroism, and I think it's appropriate to this Hall of Heroes, where we celebrate heroism, commitment, bravery, exceptional service. He said, "True heroism is not the urge to surpass all others at whatever cost, but the urge to serve others at whatever cost." Your loved ones, our colleagues, served and served and served. Today, we once again celebrate that service. We today add to this wall of heroes the names of 12 more. I'd like to think that we would never have to add that name again, but the business of policing, the business of law enforcement, is one of great danger, unfortunately, and of sacrifice, and we will be back again and again to commemorate and to celebrate. It's what we do. But as a way of consolation that in life we recognize that death is part of life. But I think most of us are of faith and believe that at some point in time that we will rejoin the ones that we have lost. I certainly believe that, and I believe that many of you do also. I'd like to share with you as I close, and before we unveil the plaque to my right, part of a letter that was written during the Civil War by a Union officer, Sullivan Ballou. Every year at this time, I'm drawn back to that letter, the whole letter. There has probably never been a more beautiful letter written in American prose than that love letter from him to his wife as he was about to go to battle. Every day, as your loved ones left you to go into the city of New York, into the streets of New York and the subways and the highways, like Sullivan, they did not know at the end of the day would they be able to return to you, their loved ones. Let me share with you his thoughts on that last day, that last letter to his wife. And I read to you, "But, oh Sarah, if the dead can come back to earth and fit unseen around those they loved, I shall always be near you in the gladdest days and in the darkest nights. Always, always. And if there be a soft breeze upon your cheek, it shall be my breath. As the cool air fans your soothing temple, your throbbing temple, It shall be my spirit passing by. Sarah, do not mourn me dead. Think I am gone, and wait for thee, while we shall meet again. Sullivan Ballou was killed in action 1 week after that letter. And I'm always reminded of it, because I think we of faith really do believe that we will all meet once again. And we will meet again and again in this hall to celebrate the lives of your loved ones as we each year fulfill our commitment to you. And thanks for their commitment and your commitment to this city and to this department. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Branton. At this time, I'd ask everyone to please rise for the reading of the 2013 Honor Roll. Lieutenant Steve L. Chaffee. Sergeant Michael J. McHugh. Detective Carmen M. Figueroa. Detective John F. Christopherson. Detective Tommy L. Merriweather. Detective Tracy L. Giakowski. Detective Thomas Weiner, Jr. Police Officer Karen E. Barnes. Police Officer Ronald G. Becker, Jr. Police Officer Richard G. Holland. Police Officer Frank G. Macri. Police Officer Francis T. Petone. Traffic Enforcement Agent Kalyana Ratni Ranna Singh. May they rest in peace. At this time, I'll ask the Mayor and the Police Commissioner to approach the memorial wall for the unveiling. Thank you. Would everyone please remain standing for the benediction by Police Department Deputy Chief Chaplain, Monsignor Robert J. Romano.
Let us pray. Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord, and let the perpetual light shine upon them. May they rest in peace. May their souls and the souls of all the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace as well. And may God grant eternal rest to our beloved dead, consolation to their families. May God bless the NYPD, and may God bless the United States of America. Amen.
Thank you, Monsignor Romano. Before we conclude today's memorial ceremony, I ask that you please join us in singing God Bless America, led by Police Officer Makia Brown.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the nights with the lights from above. to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you, Officer Brown. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the mayor and the police commissioner, we thank you for attending our memorial services. We now invite our families in our auditorium to join us in lunch. Thank you very much.